Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. I am a sales coach and trainer. I work internationally with both individuals and organizations looking to increase their sales because that's the one thing I help them do. I guarantee you this, and for those listening on a podcast, you can't see it, but nobody's hiring me for my good looks. I founded the Sales Pro Network about 4 years ago to elevate the profession of sales. And if you've been with us before, you know that every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, I either do a live training or I interview somebody who can add the value to the profession of sales. And today is no exception, my friends. Today's guest is the president and CEO of Voltage, a digital marketing agency, and is a digital marketing expert. Please welcome Corey Morris. Good morning, Corey.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's great to see you. Hey, before I get to the 1,000,001 questions I have for you, could you please give us maybe the 2 or 3 minute background? What brought you into this?
Yeah, I'm a digital marketing agency owner, but recently published my first book. I've learned a lot of lessons over the years about being, as some friends call it, relentlessly helpful. And so probably transparent to a fault in terms of giving away processes and methods and how we work. And so it's become a passion of mine to just create content and share with the world and meet people. And it's benefited, on the back end, benefited my business naturally. But between book consulting and digital agency services, that's really how I fill my day.
Yeah, there's a fine line between giving just enough to get somebody interested and show them that you're an expert and giving away too much, which is what I pay unpaid consulting, which I'm not a huge fan of. But like you, I do believe in giving it away. I get a third of my business from LinkedIn, and it's not from me reaching out to people on LinkedIn and saying, hey, do you need any sales coaching or sales training or any of my other services? It's from me posting content daily that does give away the same things that I sell to people so that they can hopefully at some point see me as a thought leader. And that's how I get a third of my business, people reaching out to me saying things like, hey, I've been following you for 6 months or a year, or whatever it is, and I need to talk about training my people or coaching or whatever it is. So I love giving stuff away, as long as you don't give away everything and not get paid for it. I like to be altruistic, but I also like to get paid for what I do.
Right.
So could we define digital marketing? What exactly is digital marketing, and what are the various components of digital marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you mentioned components. So digital marketing is not like a marketing channel. It's kind of an umbrella term for all the things that are digital. I blend back and forth. So, I own a digital agency, and digital is what I look at. But, you look at the stats and a bigger percentage, I'll get it wrong, so I won't quote the exact stat, but, a majority of marketing is online or has a digital touch point now. So you can make the argument that marketing is digital or whatever, and we don't have to keep using that qualifier. But some of the traditional, it's funny to call it traditional now, digital channels are things like email marketing, which has been, one of the oldest that's been around, and to social media, probably the newer channel, if you want to compare it maybe to it in terms of its emergence, to things like search engine optimization and search ads and paid ads, and some of the other things that have been around for a long time too and continue to get smarter in some ways are things like programmatic and display and remarketing, and and then there's some connected services and channels like over the top TV and over the things that will try to bridge the physical and digital world as well.
Gotcha. By the way, I think I forgot to say this. For those of you who are joining us live, if you have any questions for Corey, please put them in the chat. I'll be happy to pass them on as I speak with them. Corey, every salesperson, myself included, wants more leads and better leads. How can digital marketing help with that?
Yeah, so the more and better is at the heart of what we all want, and there are a lot of activities we can do. There are a lot of tactics. I believe strongly in having a defined strategy, not some giant, lofty thing that isn't actionable, but a strategy that helps bridge your goals to those tactics and do the tactics with intention. Years ago when social media emerged, to go back and hit on that one, I was doing hardcore search engine optimization, and we could track things all the way through from impression and visibility and showing up in a search result all the way through to a purchase or a lead form submission, and even further through CRM and tracking it all the way to a closed deal and lifetime value beyond that. But without, that was a lot easier. Social media emerged, and I was skeptical because it's like, well, where did this best practice or this recommendation to post 3 times a week and to um, write 3 blog posts a month or whatever? Where did that come from, and why are we just doing it without the attribution and without an expectation of ROI and an outcome from it? So having a defined strategy keeps us out of the areas of guessing or just doing something and burning through time and money to get something out there, throwing it at the wall essentially. So having a defined strategy, something you can articulate, that you can get down to a few sentences of, who your target audience is, how you want to reach them, how many of them you want, how many leads and whatever, and having that defined allows us to work backwards instead of starting with a bunch of tactics and hoping that they stick.
And is digital marketing really something only companies can do, or can individual sellers do that for themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Individual sellers. If anyone who has any type of brand or presence, and even if it's a personal brand, right, connected to your name, it's in many cases we like to send. You're sending somebody somewhere. Yeah. Now, yeah. So if that's a website, even if it's a one-page website, having some type of trackable, measurable funnel or endpoint where they can engage. Of course, you can use your personal LinkedIn. I use mine more than I use our company LinkedIn page because there's a lot more authenticity behind it. There's a person behind it instead of a corporate entity. So in a lot of ways, there are advantages by doing it at the personal brand level. But at some point, having some baseline or foundational web presence or at least consistent ways that somebody can contact you and engage with you, and you can convert them over to a prospect and ultimately to a customer, is at least a base level of what you need to have out there.
Gotcha. And is it right for, is digital marketing right for all salespeople in all companies, or are there certain types of organizations and people that it's better for or not better for?
Yeah, I would say that it really varies a little bit based on where your prospect is. So if they're not on LinkedIn and you're working in an industry that is offline, or old school or a lot more traditional, or if they're not, maybe a better example because the world is on LinkedIn and LinkedIn continues to grow in effectiveness after being up and down over the last 10 years. But if they're not on Facebook, we probably don't need to be spending half of our time on Facebook. But at the same time, I can think of a handful of times where Facebook actually was the channel for a B2B SaaS product that cut through the noise, where I'm on LinkedIn half the day and I miss half of those things, or I'm getting cold emails all day. But it was laying on the floor when my kids were younger, laying on the floor next to a kid in their bed at 9 o'clock at night, waiting for them to go to sleep, scrolling through a Facebook feed, that SaaS product with big promises caught me because it was over in a channel and where there wasn't as much noise. So I'm not trying to dodge the question here. I think that it's getting the right mix for where your target audience and your prospect is, so you're not just throwing it all out into the universe.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, I do research before I ask questions like this, and I was on your website and your LinkedIn feed, and something I saw I found interesting because I like knowing stuff, and I didn't know this one. So I know what ROI is, return on investment, but you talk about ROA. I couldn't figure out what's ROA. What is ROA, and why is that important to digital marketing?
Yeah, so ROAS or ROAS, so that's your return on ad spend. And so a lot of digital marketers, and listen, anything that I say, and it sounds like I have it figured out or I'm saying with confidence, please know that I'm not sitting here on my high horse on any of this stuff. I've learned a lot of these things the hard way over my career, or by being stuck there. But so early in my career, I, like any SEO and digital marketer, I would report KPIs and stats to clients in my nerdy world. And so, right, the ultimate goal is whatever the business outcome is that's defined, right? And in our sales world, it's typically, becoming a customer or a client when we cross that point of getting them to sign an agreement, or whatever it might be. And so working backwards from there, we go through sales process. And before that, if we're doing digital marketing or any type of marketing, we have marketing qualified leads and things that we're working up through from. And so all the way back to a first touch point when they first get exposed to us. So one of the, it's easy for digital marketers and agency people to hide behind the KPIs that are that are good metrics and KPIs that we should be looking at as indicators and to make sure that they're working their way through the funnel and through the process, but not the ultimate goal. So if I'm reporting on return on an ad spend, that needs to be taken in context to understand that, how does that connect to ultimate business outcomes? That one's closer than some of the others. If I'm showing you impressions or clicks, who cares if I get 1 million clicks if I don't get a single deal out of it? If I get 1 click and I get 1 deal, I'm probably happy in quality versus quantity. But return on ad spend is a good one, because it's closer to ROI thinking and metrics, because it's looking at, for every dollar you put in, every dollar you spend on an ad, how many dollars are you getting back, and what is that ratio? So, in some cases, an e-commerce company might like an 8 or 10 to 1 return on ad spend. In other cases, B2B or thought leadership driven types of sales and lead generation, we might have different metrics based on our overhead and all the other factors that go into our marketing overall.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because LinkedIn sometimes sends me emails. Your post got 1,500 impressions last week, or whatever the number is, and I'm always like, who cares? Is it turning into business?
Yeah,
Are people reaching out to me and having discussions with me, or are people just looking at my stuff? I love that people are looking at my stuff, but not unless it's actually doing something.
absolutely.
Yep. So I mentioned ROI, and what are some of the challenges with getting a return on investment out of your digital marketing efforts?
Yeah. Well, first off, measurement of it is critical, and being able to see, like I mentioned earlier, the attribution of, somebody engages over here and then later they come back and engage with more content, then they engage with more content, then they reach out. Or I've got a middle of the funnel. They're already in, drip campaigns and workflows. They're subscribed to my content. I know who they are, but I'm nurturing them through until they're ready to buy. Some of the challenges, there are so many, in terms of where dollars are wasted, where time and effort is wasted or lost. So I mentioned having a strategy and a defined set of outcomes and goals earlier, so I won't go back into that one. On the other end of it, being able to measure it and know what's happening and what's working and what's not is absolutely critical as well. So most of the world uses Google Analytics, which is a free analytics suite connected to your website. Google Search Console separately can connect and give you other data, and any of those platforms from where you might be sending email from. You mentioned LinkedIn metrics a moment ago. It's getting those things connected, whether it's a third-party dashboard or software, or how you do that is one thing. So you can baseline it, benchmark it, understand what's working and happening. In between, though, like I said earlier, tactics in the absence of intention and strategy can lead to a lot of wasted dollars or ads that are mistargeted. And so one of the biggest things is not understanding who your audience is or where they are, or just putting things on autopilot. I won't pick on LinkedIn because I love LinkedIn as a source, but it's really easy to go turn on an ad or turn on a campaign. I just had actually a job listing running sponsored. I'm glad I noticed, because it's really easy to drop $75 a day and not even see where it went. The same thing is the case with Google, and with other different ad networks that you can run on, of they're going to take your money whether it's working for you or not. And I say that agencies and consultants will too. And so being able to be connected enough, whether you're doing it and you have to be studied up on how these channels and how these tactics work to know if it's working or not, or if you're trusting somebody else and hiring them to do it for you, you have to be educated to a point of being able to make sure there's accountability in all those activities, whether you're doing them personally or somebody else is, because if you're not owning that, then someone else is going to take advantage of it, or it's just going to run.
Yeah, like you said, it's very easy to spend a lot of money and not know where it's going or if it's doing anything for you. And there are some metrics and some analytics that are incredibly useful. For example, one of the things I do is called outsourced or fractional sales management. And a company that I'm working with, we had just installed a script so that we can tell who visits our website. And when I give out the leads to the various salespeople, the first thing I'm looking at is not just did they come to our website, but what pages did they visit and how long? So, I gave out a lead yesterday. I said, call this guy immediately. He was on our page for 7.5 minutes. And there's others where they're there for 2 seconds. And, I don't know if that's even worth a call. So paying attention to the important analytics, the important metrics is key. How can I know that I'm doing the right digital marketing things to promote my services? Does it really boil down only to metrics?
There's other feedback you can get through the sales process. Naturally, we're hopefully asking, not jumping ahead, but as we build relationships with those that we're prospecting and talking with, we're understanding how they found us, what did it for them in terms of content, where they were in the research process. Really building. I don't like the term. I use the term funnel a lot because it's more the generic term, right? And it's easier to think of where they were in terms of top of the funnel, middle, and bottom. But it's really more complex than that. People's customer journey, or search intent, or how they found you and where they are. Where someone might find us when they are in action mode, where they just show up today and they filled out a form and we're on a phone call next week, or they've been researching for a year. They were, and their awareness of what their problem is, they're trying to figure out what their problem actually is, or they have a problem and they need a solution today, or wherever they are in between. So understanding generally what that is, but be able to optimize around it, because there's certain types of content that we're writing that is thought leadership, really far away from a sale. And then there's the almost sales collateral version of our content at the bottom of the funnel, where someone needs to know, they need to know what the pricing is for this, or they need to know how they engage or what the terms are. And they're one step away from getting into a conversation with us. And so understanding that and how that works and how long it might take for them to engage with you and the various ways that you want them to engage with you is important, because some of those small details are missed. Or we run the analogy of a colleague uses of that you can't run at the deer if you want to feed them out of your hand, right? The first time you got to get them comfortable and coming back, and the trust built for them to eventually be here and ready for you to then make the ask. I'm not saying you can't make the ask, but having those out of order based on where somebody is in their own journey is one of those things that will chase someone off really fast. Or you don't make the ask and they just stay on your list, and you just help solve, you just educated them, and then they forgot who you were and went back to Google tomorrow and ended up on a competitor's website.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that, there's a right time to make the ask, whether it's no matter what it's for, including closing the sale. There's an old saying, in sales, ABC, always be closing. If you ever saw the movie Glengarry Glen Ross,
Yeah.
with that famous scene in the beginning with Alec Baldwin as the sales manager from ABC, always be closing. I've always argued with them, like, you can't always be closing. I'm not going to walk in and meet somebody for the first time and say, want to buy something? You've got to go through the process. So there's a right time to do all those things. I want to ask you about something else that I get asked about all the time in the sales world, and that's AI. I get a lot of questions about how can you use AI? Is it going to replace us? How is AI changing things when it comes to digital marketing?
Yeah, it's one of the most misused and misunderstood terms. It's 2 letters, but it means so many different things to different people, even people who produce tools that leverage it. So to me, the word tool is a big distinguishing factor right now. I'm not saying it won't just be able to solve all of our problems tomorrow. But right now, I look at it as a tool more than the end all or end point solution. There are some great applications. I was just talking with a colleague the other day over lunch, and they're building this end-to-end thing that's trying to replace digital marketing agencies. And I'm like, oh, this is intriguing. I would love to get access to this. I don't feel threatened, right? Because there's a right fit, whether it's tech or an agency or a consultant or in-house team or whatever, that's a right fit for every situation. But there's a lot of things that my team has used to speed up processes, be more efficient, go get data faster, go do research in different ways. We've tested it. We've used it in some ways for content development. I continue to test it. I write for a lot of different publications. Some of them have rules where I can't use it, which is totally fine. I test it for my own stuff. I spend more time still editing than if I had just written that out of my head.
Yeah.
I can knock that 1,000-word article out in 45 minutes, or I can go edit for an hour and still not feel real great about where the final product ended. But I say that, knowing that it continues to get better. My philosophy on it, and I talk about this a lot, or, the analogy I use is we have to, not ignore what works today and take our eye off of, what's producing ROI for us today. And you can spend all of your day chasing shiny objects and chasing down and looking at AI. At the same time, you can't ignore it and bury your head in the sand and get left behind. So it's funny that even though we use it, we have a task force, we test a lot of things. I feel like everyone I talk to feels like they're behind. And that's natural for something that's so open-ended, right? Mm-hmm. Where we feel like we're behind. So have dedicated time. My recommendation is to make intentional time to test. So that way you'll be disciplined about it, and it will fit in your day, and you'll have an opportunity to do it where you won't feel like you're not doing it, or it gets pushed out as the important but not urgent activity. Or it doesn't, become this nebulous thing where you're spending all of your time and you're, not getting your sales activities done and closing your day and everything else that you need to do. So it's definitely a balance. There's a lot of junk out there, and we'll continue to see junk. I keep wondering why, I see the stats on cold email and the challenges and the filters and the things that are making it less effective. And I keep seeing things written by AI. In fact, I've got an email, my VP got an email the other day, a cold email, and I've still got it here somewhere handy, but it was AI generated. We can tell because it pulled up a couple of different clients mentioned on our website as case studies, and it knew the industry. It can tell the industry of one of them, and it said, "Hey, I see that you work with so and so and so and so. We can bring you, sales and leads and information on the C-suite and decision makers from companies. Here's a company in that industry," and it linked to Amazon.com/weddings. Because one of them is a wedding gift. One of our clients is a wedding gift retailer. And we found a C-suite contact, Jay Bezos at Amazon.com. And I'm like,
awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
There you go.
So helpful. And so, unchecked things like that, it can just make you look silly or just burn up your reputation, your IP address, your domain name, if you get classified as spam and other things, in addition to looking silly.
Yeah. I have a dear friend who's brilliant, and he invented an app. He developed an app that will write your LinkedIn post for you. And I love him desperately and admire him and respect him, but I can tell every post that he writes, this one he wrote, this one was AI. And I'm also glad you talked about using it as a tool, but not just using what it spits out. Like you, I write a lot of articles. I don't use AI at all to do that. My thought comes, and that's what I want to say. And I know that you can have it spit something out and then, change the prompt to make it a little warmer, make it a little more of this, and eventually maybe you'll get there. But I just like writing. But I do use it to help develop email cadences. But if you send those out without editing them, first of all, every one of them is going to start with, "Hope you're having a great day." It's like you can't send out 8 emails in a row that all start with the same thing, and nobody's going to know that it was written by a robot. So I think for sales, because I get a lot of questions about it too, the biggest one being, is AI going to replace us? Do I need to look for a different career? Maybe eventually. AI's been around for quite a while. It's a new phenomenon, but it's been around for quite a while, but it's still got a ways to go. I still believe that sales is about the relationship, the value that you bring and the relationship. And I don't have a relationship with a robot. And I do have concerns. I've seen the Terminator movies, and I don't know that that's completely out of line. I'm listening to people like Bill Gates who are saying, yeah, that's a real issue. If it gets smarter and smarter by the moment, and we could be working for AI one day. So I'm keeping an eye on it, and I'm definitely one of those people who feels like I'm behind the curve. But it's one of those things where it changes by the second, just kind of like marketing.
Yeah, I agree.
When it comes to building a website and actually managing an online presence, like my own, for example, what should I prioritize? I mean, there's so many things I could be doing. Where do the priorities lie?
Yeah, at a base level, I really focus on getting as much efficiency out of any activity that we do. So again, link back to your strategy and goals. I'll just beat that drum forever because that's anything in terms of intentionality, that you want to do it with purpose. But anything that you can do one time and deploy and reuse 100 places is scalable for me. And so scalable activities and efficiency are important. So if I have a blog on my website and I can leverage that also in my LinkedIn newsletter, and or I've written for, or vice versa, I've written for third party publications, like in my case I write for Search Engine Land, Search Engine Journal, and Forbes. If I, with permission, right, and within the use content guidelines and use of things that are on third party sites, I also reuse those and repost those on my site, on LinkedIn, anywhere. If I'm producing content one place and I can get it, out to 7 places, or I can drip some of it out, or it turns into, 8 social posts off of one article I wrote, leveraging that on my owned platforms like my website and my own, and leased or rented spaces like third-party platforms where I don't own it, but I can also get reach like through LinkedIn. All those are important places for me. So for example, in my case, I have those third-party places I write, with permission, repost as LinkedIn articles and newsletters. I have them as blog posts on my site. I also have my own email marketing newsletter that for my list that I own, that goes out monthly, but it recaps a lot of those articles too. So creating content once and being able to get miles and leverage out of it in a lot of places is important. And so that's kind of the philosophy and mindset I look at. So we're not just doing something for the website, doing something for the blog, something for the podcast that we can't use in more than one place.
Gotcha. Now, one of the things that I've been told, and you're the expert, so tell me if it's right or not, is that when you write an article, say to post on LinkedIn, that you don't want to post the same article on other sites because it actually hurts you in the search rankings, that you have to change it. Is that true? Or can I just repurpose the same article and put it on 7 different platforms?
Yeah, that's a great question. Now you're opening the box into my SEO nerdery a little bit. So
go for it.
So duplicate content is something it's not penalized by Google, but it does get filtered. So Google doesn't want to show, the whole first 10 results, all the same article on 10 different sites. It wants to show a variety. And so Google's going to pick the version that has the highest authority and trust signals and the things in its algorithm that helped get there. So if I'm writing for Forbes, and I have the article there, and I also put it on my personal site, the Forbes one is going to have the most authority and trust signals because of Google's esteem for that publication. And so mine will get filtered out, but it depends on how you use the content. And so for search, is the credibility higher and the reach higher with Forbes being found for that than if it's mine? Probably. And so I look at trust signals and endorsement, and does Forbes have a way and a byline and links and bio to get that back to me? And so how am I using it versus how is Forbes going to use it? So if I want it to rank organically on my own site, and it's a topic I talk about and write variations of on, everywhere, then the general rule or best practice is to have at least 80% unique content. That gets challenging if I'm taking from my book back here behind me, if I'm taking content that I've written and I don't want to change it into 5 variations because I want to talk about this in a structured 5-step way. I'm not going to change my process or my methodology that I'm talking about everywhere, but it's trying to find the right angle, and understanding where the biggest reach and value is. So as an SEO at heart, I definitely, know it's cheapest, easiest, and most beneficial to get leads through my own site. But if I'm trying to think about how to scale my reach, if I'm getting, if I'm starting from scratch and it's going to take me a year or two to build up the library of content and the trust and authority signals, I can get a head start in some places by having it be on a third party platform. And the benefit of Forbes or someone like that having a link on their site to my site gives me link value where I might not have the content originality, and get that. I can get the link value, and that's over time helps me build the trust signals into my site.
I gotcha. So it's
I
not
gave you the
detrimental.
3-minute version of what could have been the class here, but it's about finding that balance of where you can get the most reach versus building up your own authority status too.
Got it. So it's not negatively affecting me. It's just a matter of, is it doing what I want it to do based on where it's going?
Yeah, and there's an opportunity to be fully transparent and link back to the original source. Like at the bottom of a lot of my articles, I'll say this article originally appeared on Search Engine Journal and link to the source. That way, Google is not accidentally misinterpreting you as trying to rip off somebody's content or anything else, even if it was your content on a different site.
Interesting. Okay. I want to ask you about your book, which is called The Digital Marketing Success Plan and the START Planning Process. But before we talk about START, what goes into a complete digital marketing plan, and who needs to do the work? I mean, is it all done for you, or do I have to do? How does that work?
Yeah. The book is the do-it-yourself guide, essentially. And that's, I know a lot of people who have the passion and ability to invest the time to go work through a framework like mine and establish their own plan and activate it. My agency business, though, is the done for you version of it, where we will walk you through it. But in any case, it is collaborative and needs to be. It requires sitting around the table, especially if there are multiple stakeholders in an organization, and making sure we're using the same terms and definitions and goals, and we get any of that out of the way so we don't get 6 months into something and we all had 3 different goals. We thought we were using the same word or term, but we defined it different ways. So getting on the same page, understanding what's worked historically, what our goals are and opportunities are forward in the market, looking forward in the marketplace are important. Be able to measure it, be able to create the assets, and be able to actually have the discipline to see it through, even when things get busy or we get distracted down the road. So those are all keys to it. It's always nice, and even though we do our own stuff, right, and eat our own dog food, or whatever phrase you want to pick there, but it's always helpful and I seek out outside voices to check us or to push me as well, whether that's to do it for me or just to give me a second opinion and tell me what I'm missing.
Gotcha. And I unfortunately don't have a copy. For those who are watching live, do you have a copy that you can hold up?
I do.
It is called The Digital Marketing Success Plan. There we go. Bingo. And am I correct? It's available on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. Yeah. I feel blessed. Hit a couple of specific bestseller categories in July when it launched. And it's essentially us, where we finally got organized and put our process into 5 steps and got to a point to articulate them in a way that's helpful to the masses versus it just being our kind of close to the vest, weave through the process and not be as approachable with it.
Well, I'm going to have to pick that up. And that 5-step process that you're talking about, is that what you call the START planning process?
Yeah. So that's an acronym. It starts with strategy and then gets to tactics. As I mentioned earlier, we want tactics to be subordinate to the strategy. The things we do are not the strategy. So nailing down your strategy, working into what tactics are right for us, and going through some of the research, and even challenging some biases. Maybe I hate Facebook, but maybe I need to be on Facebook because that's where my audience is, and understanding what the opportunity cost is if I choose not to be there, or what platforms or ways that I want to get out there to my audience. Then it gets into application. So STA. So it's application. That's where we're understanding what assets we need. Maybe our web presence is holding us back. And before we give Google any ad dollars, we need to really build or rebuild our house, if you will, before we invite guests to it. So making sure that we have the assets we need, the creative, or if there are any deficiencies or challenges in our brand and our messaging where we sound the same as everyone else and we can't articulate our distinctive competencies, we should solve that before we go start running ads or producing large scale content. So application review, that's the ability to measure all of this. So that's getting things right. There are some great third-party dashboard software programs out there that will pull your analytics together, but they're blind to knowing how much you're spending on software. They're blind to know how much you're spending on, your own time and the value of it and the trade-off, or how much you're spending with an agency or somebody else to get to the ultimate ROI equation. And so that's important. And then transformation is the last step, and that is making sure we have a documented plan. We have everything mapped out, whether it's tactics on a timeline, how often we're going to revisit, whether it's monthly, quarterly, whatnot, the results, and making sure that we're disciplined in activating this plan and it doesn't go on a shelf the second that things get busy.
Brilliant and straightforward. I especially liked what you said about audience, and I got an education on this almost 20 years ago when I launched my company. I hired a guy to design my logo. And so he sent me, I think, 3 different fonts and like 100 different color schemes and said, pick out the font you like best and pick out the color scheme you like best, and then we'll go from there. So I picked out the 2 things that I liked the best, and I sat down with him. He goes, tell me why you like this font. Tell me why you like these colors. The font just appealed to me. It was soft and nice. And the colors, it looked like a sunset. And, red, orange, yellow, like that. And why did I pick that? I like sunsets. I like sunrises. I like sunsets. So I'm like, that's great. And then he said something brilliant, which really educated me. He goes, now tell me about your typical customer. And I started describing, back then I was only doing sales training for large corporations. Well, it's typically a senior VP of sales, and they're hard charging. They're often men, and blah, 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 blah. He goes, good. Do you think those are the people who are going to like this soft font and sunsets? I'm like, no, they're not. I like it, but they're not going to like this at all. My logo doesn't look anything like what I liked, although I love it now. But it doesn't matter what I like if I'm trying to sell something. It matters what my customer or my audience likes, and that was a very valuable lesson, which I've kept for all the way through, because I'm not selling me.
Absolutely. Well, and something in there too. There's definitely a value in branding and brand strategy. And so I mentioned it a moment ago, similar to product development or whatever, assets and things you need to sell. What are you, if you're not selling on price, and most people aren't,
not me, what
are the differentiators, right? And are they consistent in your sales? It's a lot easier to not have to make them up as a salesperson if they are truly attributes of the product or service you're selling, and it's consistent all the way through the customer experience, from first impression all the way through what you're selling authentically, and what the customer is ultimately going to experience. And so my agency used to do branding back in the day, but we partner with a lot of different branding agencies, and branding agencies are further away. It feels fluffy, right? We're talking about, look and feel things, or things that are further away in terms of investment from seeing me spend $1 and make $12 on the marketing side, and the performance marketing and digital marketing side of things. But at the same time, on the marketing side, if I don't have the unique attributes and story to tell that differentiates me and makes me stand apart, it doesn't matter where I appear in a Google ad or one of the 10 links on a Google search results page if I look the same as everyone else. And so when I start, hearing that the sales team keeps getting beat up on price, and that's like the biggest factor, then we didn't do our job before it got to sales, or with getting the brand set up and differentiated, if we're just using all the same language everyone else uses on their sites or in their marketing. So, and if it's subjective, again, it could be, if it's just this nice little activity we did to get to what our logo and color palette is, or voice and tone and messaging, and it's not, doesn't really have the essence and substance behind it, it's going to hurt everything downstream in terms of marketing, sales, and customer experience. And so, but on the flip side, if we get too unique and too cutesy, and we're using words that our customer and audience doesn't use, then we won't be found because we're not in the arena there. And so there's this delicate balance of being there and understanding what they want, and starting from there without, reinventing the industry.
Yeah, I'd add to the argument that if salespeople are constantly getting beat up on price, they don't know how to sell. If you can't articulate the value that you bring to I'll say it differently. When you articulate the value clearly in a way that the customer or the prospect goes, "Oh, I get it," price becomes unimportant. Not completely unimportant. I'm not stupid. I live in the real world, and you can't charge $10 million for somebody who does the same exact thing for $1,000. But given the that things are similar, you're going to get beat up on price if the prospect doesn't first feel a relationship with you in some way, shape, or form, and doesn't see the value of what you bring to the table. I have competitors, there's a gazillion people who do what I do, but some who I consider really good at it, and some who are very local. And I know I'm more expensive than both of the ones who I compete with locally, but I've never lost a deal to either of them because I don't think it's about the price. It's right. I think there are people who will beat you up for a nickel, but that's not most people. It's why people will buy a Mercedes SL 500 for $110,000, and other people buy a $500 Honda from 1985, a used car. They take you the same place, except the person who spends $110,000 for the car saw that much more value in owning a new Mercedes as opposed to a 1985 Honda Accord. There's something else I wanted to ask you about. Many of what might be called your competitors call themselves a full service agency. You actually brag about not being full service. Why is that?
Yeah, I realized that over the years, if we looked at things that we did and delivered for clients on maybe a good, better, and best scale, I didn't like good. And in some cases don't like better. I want it to be the best at what we do. And when our focus as an agency was split multiple ways between doing branding, doing social media, doing email, doing search engine optimization, paid Google ads, traditional creative, writing copy. When we were trying to do everything, even in a 20-something person staff, we'd still have weak links there. And I don't say this as disrespect to any of the smart people that I've had on my team over the years, but I say this when one person, no matter how talented and smart they are, is the email marketing person, and they have to know 11 different CRMs and platforms that our clients are in. You can't master all of those, and you're stretched thin. Or if we've got, 2 people working on branding, and I'm going against a 100-person branding only agency, it's hard to match up with them from a competitive standpoint. It's hard to match up to them in a quality standpoint. And so we returned a little bit to the roots of my career in terms of centering back on search, because we felt like we had, in any pitch or situation, had all the assets and ingredients we need in terms of the fact that I've served on the Global Trade Association board, those publications I mentioned earlier that I write for being the most awarded in our region in those categories of what we do. So all that social proof is out there, and it's an opportunity for us to know that we can go toe to toe with anybody on just this subject matter, instead of trying to be everything to everyone. What happens, and one of the reasons people get mad at, or one of the many reasons people fire agencies, is maybe that agency was really good at that one thing, but they were delivering 10 things, and 9 out of those 10, they were getting a junior person or someone who was just giving them okay work. And it just gets frustrating over time when it's just the mail it in, or I could have done this better myself type of experience. And so for us, it's a lot easier for us to say, hey, I'm going to go get that branding, that high end branding partner and bring them in with me or refer you to them than to try to say, I'm going to do it all and be a middleman here where you have no idea what quality you're going to get or the what and why.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I want to be seen as the best, or at least among the best, at the 3 or 4 things that I do. I get approached constantly by organizations that want me to include their product or their service. Jeff, why don't you promote our CRM? We'll pay you this every time somebody buys it. Or I get constantly. I'm not in that business. That's not my business. Let me introduce you to experts who can point you to the right direction for the right CRM or whatever the product is. So yeah, I can't know everything, and I don't want to. I want to focus on the things that I know I'm really great at, because that's where I deliver the most value. So I completely agree.
And it's a lot easier then for people to understand what you do. When we made this shift, a lot of colleagues were like, oh, wow, we're weak in that area or we don't do that. I'm going to start referring to you. I'm like, but that's the area that I've done my entire career, but I got a lot less complicated and a lot easier to understand, and perceived overlap of other services or the garbled message of we're a full service agency that does blah 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 blah. It's like, well, what do you really do, or what are you really good at? So I just like going a level deeper than that and saying, this is what we do. And that's really helped because it's easier for to be that trusted advisor that people will refer to, versus this cake that's been baked with 100 ingredients and we haven't cut into it yet.
Yeah. As the president and CEO of a digital marketing agency, which is called Voltage, it looks like you place a very high value on company culture. In fact, I was checking out your website, and looks like your office includes a putting green for the people that they can just go play every time, whenever they want. You were all dressed kind of casually. I think it was you putting in the picture with sunglasses on. How would you describe the culture at your company, and why do you feel that creating that type of culture is so important?
Yeah, much like a brand out there, as much as we want to put into it physical things or our own stamp on it, it's really owned by the people, and the people that contribute to it. So we do have a putting green. We've got a foosball table. We've got a 22-foot shuffleboard table. We have a kegerator and all the things that you would want an agency to have. But those things are not what make up our culture, right? Those are things that make this physically a more fun place to be, hopefully. But the people that we hire, and we're careful about our hiring process to make sure people are culture fits, not so we all fit in one mold and lack diversity or anything like that. I don't want it to sound that way, but to make sure that we don't have any challenges with understanding who we are and who our ultimate customer is and how we deliver to them. So that's the key. There's nothing that says we can't have a lot of fun and enjoy working together. We're not a factory. We sit in front of computers all day. So having the ability to think and to collaborate and to also have fun together, and build trust is important for us. So I'll go back to the people part of it. I own the company and make some of the decisions on what's in our office. It's ultimately in the hands of the people that work here and how they've shaped it over time too.
Yep. And I would bet that it increases retention, so you're not constantly churning employees back and forth. Yep. I came across another term in something you wrote that I hadn't heard before. What is search intent, and why is that so important to digital marketing efforts?
Yeah, that's probably at the crux of where things go wrong. As I mentioned earlier, it's how someone, what they're looking for in a moment where they engage with you. So if they're searching in a search engine, are they in research mode? Do they even, as I mentioned earlier, are they even aware that they have a problem, or maybe they just encountered the problem but they don't know anything about the solution for it? This could be anything from my spring broke on my garage door, and the problem occurred 5 seconds ago, and I need it solved same day, right? And I'm going to go from problem to finding the solution immediately. Things like that happen. Unfortunately, we've had some nonprofits in the medical space who do a lot of education on different rare diseases and things like that. You get a diagnosis, you're scared, you have no idea, and where are you going to start searching? What is your intent? Well, your intent in searching as the person who got the diagnosis is probably different than a family member who's supporting you in that, and or someone who might be sympathetic to and supportive of the cause, and who's going to go do a walk run, this weekend for a cause, who doesn't have anyone directly impacted by it. So all the different levels of intent and why I'm searching for something and when I'm searching for something are important. If I translate that over to sales and I think about my own sales, um, I saw a great, I've seen variations of it over the past couple of years, but a great, pie chart that shows you, the yes, I'm buying now, and the small sliver of what that percentage is. And then another one being the, yes, but not now. And then the, others, the one that you never want to waste any cycles on, of the no never, right? But understanding that intent, and when that content is in front of someone, or what they're asking for or what they're looking for, we can set up our methods and our sets of content for how somebody's searching. But if things change and they start searching through a smart speaker, and they're talking to one of their smart device assistants, I won't name any of them because I don't need devices going off all around me to try and talk back here. But any of how they're searching then, and where they are searching and what they're searching for, is very different. If I'm in a lockdown IT environment, in a corporation, and I can't, or financial institution, I can't even go out to Google, or Bing is the default because it's a Microsoft system. I need to make sure that, if I'm selling corporate IT products, that I understand where somebody is and how they're searching, and what kind of content I'm going to present to them in that environment. If they're on a giant monitor versus on their phone out in the field, or on a factory floor, or wherever they might be, when they're searching and how they're searching, and what their problem is and what my solution is for them. And so that can be 25 different ways that I want to be ready for when they are searching and looking for me, or that could be as narrow as one. I only solve one thing. People only have it they come in a very linear way through the process, and that's it.
Wow. I was laughing because when you said, I'm not going to mention it, I was watching a movie recently. I can't remember the name. Doesn't matter. But several times during the movie, one of the people said, Alexa, blah, blah, blah. And of course, my Alexa starts talking to me, which means I've got to now replay the movie because I missed what they said. And it kept on going. I finally had to turn off Alexa in order to watch
captions.
Exactly right. I have a feeling you could probably spend an hour on this question, but we've only got a few minutes left. What about SEO and keywords? How do we know what keywords to actually use?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me this right after the question about intent, because that's what's important. There's a lot of, so there are some great tools out there. From Google's got its own keyword planner tool that helps you in Google Ads if you're setting up your first Google Ads campaign, or managing them ongoing. There's some great third-party ones like Ahrefs and Moz and SEMrush. Some great paid tools that are approachable, where you can go do research and they're telling you the popularity of different terms. Matching that with intent, though, is key. So if I'm a local Kansas City car dealer, and let's just say I'm a Ford dealer, and I have no business trying to rank generically for the term cars. It may logically in my head, it would be a home run if I did rank for it. But if I ranked nationally for the term cars generically, how much effort, how many dollars am I going to have to invest to get there, for 99.9% of the people that see that search result to not be my potential customer? So
because they're not in your area and they're not looking for a Ford.
Exactly. Or they might not even be in buying mode. They might be researching. They might be a car enthusiast. They might be looking for an auction, whatever it might be, or service that I don't offer. So getting it honed in to a point where there's enough search volume, so if it's, you may not need 1 million people a month searching for it. If that more right fit keyword, like car dealer, Kansas City, Do Cars, Kansas City, Ford, Kansas City, depending on how much brand matters. Being in that arena where there's enough qualifications to those terms that it's right fit if you get that traffic and you're ranked for it. If it's top of the funnel content and the intent is research mode, how many times am I answering their questions about maintenance or what are people searching for? It may only be 2 people a month, but to what we talked about earlier, if you get that one click and that one click turns into a customer, especially if you're selling a service and a higher end and a higher ticket item, that probably matters a lot more to you than being found by the masses for something that you're not qualified to sell or answer the question on anyway.
So you could waste a lot of time and money and not get anything back for it, or the leads that are actually good for you become way too expensive.
Yeah, so I would rather take, personally, in a quality versus quantity approach, I'd rather take 50 searches that get searched once and be the answer for them for this long tail question they're asking and be the trusted resource that they find, and add those 50 together than to try to go be out on a term that's got 500 searches and maybe one person in that has the right intent to find my product or service and become a customer.
And that brings me back to the first question where I said everybody wants more and better leads. I think it's really we all want more qualified leads.
Absolutely.
I'm with you, Corey. I hate to say it, but we're out of time because I could ask you 75 more questions and talk to you all day. But because we can't do that, I'm going to share my screen. Would you please let people know how they can get in touch with you if they're interested in speaking with you or working with you?
Absolutely. So my book's easy to find on Amazon. So if you just Google Digital Marketing Success Plan, you'll be able to find it there. But I also have the link to the website where we're going to add some resources shortly as well. And it gives you the overview of the methodology. That's at thedmsp.com, because that would be an incredibly long domain name. And you can reach me for any questions on strategy and planning over there at Corey@thedmsp.com. If you'd love to talk to me more about speaking or being a guest on any shows, you can find or for an example of a personal brand website that we talked about earlier, go to CoreyMorris.com. And for anything related to agency services, or if you're like, I just don't have the time, or I want to explore, we'll do a absolutely free strategy call consultation with you over at voltage.digital.
Gotcha. And because some people are watching this live, but it'll get turned into a podcast, would you like to give out a phone number?
Yeah. So we're in Kansas City. So it's area code 816-471-2191.
Corey Morris, the president and CEO of Voltage Digital Marketing. Thank you so much for sharing your brilliance with us so generously. And I'll end as I do every week. Gang, sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend, Corey. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jeff.